Stream starting. All right, just verifying the stream has started correctly. Looks good. I'll pause my own viewing of that. Resize that a little bit. All right. Hello, chat. Working on a programmable parser, and you can write in a parsing language I came up with the description of any format you want it to parse. So I was looking at JSON. I accidentally broke it last stream, and I figured out after stream where I broke it. Literal is a string like this, and I changed the meaning of the length function for strings. That instead of the length of the string being the number of characters, it is the number of bytes. So that's one problem. The other problem is that the way I've written the syntax for JSON, if it can't parse, if it has a parsing problem, it backs all the way out and says, I don't know what kind of value that is, even though it should have known that it was going into an object by the first character. And that's because of the way that I've defined a value. With this alternate syntax, if there's any error in any one line, it'll back out and try the next, as if it had never even tried the ones before it. The problem is if it partially parses something as an object, fails, it'll try the other ones even though it can't possibly be anything else. Hey there. How do you say your name? Rira Lucas. Hello. So I'm gonna probably change this so that we don't use the alt syntax for this, but we do a look ahead. Kind of like how I have in the comment here that if the first character is one of these, we can kind of know what we're supposed to be parsing. Same thing with TF and N for true, false, and null, right? Hey there, Stripe Monkey. So fixing that should fix the problem that when I have some kind of problem, we can't get any information out of the parser. Actually, I'm going to do that first because it should help illustrate how we can basically figure out from the output that it's broken here. So if I change this to be look ahead, UTF 8 char next, and then let's call it C, and then we'll say next equals char C. I'm leveraging this built-in function character, which imports the value that we parsed for the character back into the parser as a Unicode code point, so that we can say if next, and then we actually compare it with well, not just a code point, but a string with a single Unicode code point in it. So I can. This one's difficult because I don't have the ability to escape a double quote like that. But I can, I think it's hex 22. So we can just use the original character code and remember that that's a double quote. No reason why it has to be next for every single one of these. I can reuse C if it's more convenient. Let me add that to my to-do list. I don't think it's here. Support, escape, sequences. Well, it's basically escape sequence for double quote. Oh, Kitty's back. Kitty's back at the window. Hello, Kitty. Double quote. Yes, cat. I'm just going to leave these lines in here, but comment them all out. If I do it this way, I don't even need this extra else, right? So this would be, I'll use the original character code because I don't know if I can do string or string order comparison yet. And you might notice that I'm not supporting like a negative sign in front of number. Yeah, that's on my list of things to support, but right now I don't have that. TFN, right? Right, so I can say object here, string, list, number, and then expect basically what I had here goes here, uncommented. Oh, I guess I just did that, right? All right. Is it a custom language? Yeah, it's a custom language. I'll give you a very brief description. So here's a link to the project. Oh, goodbye, kitty. So what I mean by a programmable parser, I'll just bring up the GUI, and because it's broken right now, I'm gonna switch to a different config, just to illustrate things, and a different data file. So here's pogslide.gif, right? If I open that guy up, project stage folder. So it's animated GIF, right? So it's got multiple images in it. So if we want to like see how it's formatted in a file, we bring it in as one of the files that my program reads. So that's like on the left hand is the raw file that has the image, the animation in it, right? And then that's in one hand of the program, and the other hand of the program is another file in this custom language that jump to it, that describes how to parse, how to read the contents of that file and extract the information like the color tables, the frames, the pixel values and everything, what you'd have to do in order to be able to extract and then show that animation. And this will usually follow the specification of the file format. So if you looked up the GIF file format specification, they'll say a GIF file starts with a header and has a logical screen, and then there's one or more data blocks, and then there's a trailer block. So what my program does is it takes in that description, it compiles it into what they call an abstract syntax tree. It's just a data structure representation of this, and then that data structure is traversable, like you can walk through it in sequence. And the way I have the syntax defined, when you walk through that data structure in sequence, it's like a recipe for what you do at every point. Like first you parse the header, and then you parse the logical screen, and it's a compositional structure. So you can have structures within structures. So header itself has a structure, right? And header has a version, and version itself is a structure. And you get down to what they call the leaf nodes, or the intrinsics, or the elemental pieces, the ones that the parser knows intrinsically. That's the built-in functions. And I have them as short strings, like S for string, UI for unsigned integer. And so let's say GIF has a header has an S signature, and the :24 means it's 24 bits long, it's a string, and name it signature. So it'll dutifully grab those first 24 bits, interpret it as a string, and it'll show what the value that it interpreted from the file was, and it remembers that it was a S for string format. And it just walks through the data structure And if it does not hit any error, that means the file that you gave it was in fact a GIF, and we get all the data out of it, like the fact that there are 11 blocks in it, there's a app extension, and then we have 10 graphic control blocks, and those are the 10 animation frames from that original GIF, the POG slide. So there's 10 frames here, right? Along with things like how long to show the frame, which is in the graphic control block, I believe. It'll be like delay time. So I think that 2 is in units of like tenths of a second or something like that. So it'd be like show this frame and then delay for 2/10 of a second, then show the next, and then it loops back to the beginning. So once it's figured out what every byte of the file means, now there's like a linkage now between the original data and the bytes. So I can go and click on any byte here. Like I can scroll down and see, oh, what's Netscape doing there? I can click on it and I say, oh, it's the application identifier within this application extension, which is the first data block of the file. Pretty cool, right? So I might use this if I have like a broken GIF file and I want to know like how it got corrupted, or I might have a more complicated file format that has like an unknown media type in it, and I can go in and see what the identifier for the media type is. Yeah, so I can make different parsers. So I did it for GIF first, and then I did it for JSON, and then I also was working on MVE, which is an interplay format for some retro games like Baldur's Gate. And yeah, so you can conceivably do it for protocols. That's a great example. So you could like record a bunch of packets on a packet sniffer, run it through a parser like this, and you can see, oh, each packet and like whether it forms a protocol layer like HTTP or if it's something else. Yeah, sort of like a general purpose protocol or format interpreter. Very nerdy, I know, but you can do some cool things with it, like reverse engineer file formats. If you just see a block of data, like if you didn't know what this was, and you see, oh, GIF 89, you could figure out that it's a GIF file, and you could probably reason that the 89 stands for something. In this case, it does. It's like the format, the 1989 published standard of the format. And like if you knew, for example, that the GIF was 112 by 112, you could figure it out from these two words. That must be the width and the height, stuff like that. Anyway, that's what I'm working on. A couple details about that. I'll just link it in chat. This is all written in Rust. So if you're going to make your own custom language like this, a parser generator is really handy, and so is a lexer. So these are two big components that put together allow you to make your own language and compile it. I'll start with the lexer description. So ultimately, you're telling the lexer how to turn the characters that make up your language into tokens. So like a token would be one word like GIF, or one hex number like that, or it could be punctuation, right? So that's what a lexer does. It takes in either like literal strings and says, well, that's a reserved word. Or you can give a regular expression and it says, whenever you match that regular expression, hey, that's an identifier. You know, this is a floating point value, etc. So that's what a lexer does. And Logos is a Rust crate that's really good at that. You can see it's basically a huge enum with a bunch of patterns and other stuff attached as macros from Logos. And token, you either have token or you have regex. And you have some boilerplate that goes with it. I think this is how you map like the output token to the enum that you made to the output token. Something like that. This token is right. Token is declare. I declare that in another crate. And I want to map the Logos output to that crate. But other than that, most of it is just annotating your enum, which is all your defined tokens. Oh, and guess who's back? Kitty is back. Seeing the bird outside the window, I guess. So that's Logos. And then the really fun stuff is when you look at the grammar. So Lollipop being a parser generator, This is instructions on how a program is assembled from those tokens, and it's hierarchical. So at the very top of the hierarchy, we have formats. So GIF is a format, header is a format, version is a format. Well, how do you define a format? It's either nothing, or it's a bunch of formats you already have plus another one, or it's a syntax error. The little tricks on how you handle either an empty file or a syntax error, and how you chain things together. So the idea is the parser generator makes code that matches things, and whenever it matches a syntactical construct, it'll either like reduce that to using one of these rules, or it'll shift in another token. And so ultimately, everything will get reduced down to a formats as the output, whereas the input was a bunch of tokens, unless you have an error. So like you would shift in a token, and it would say, well, it can't be this rule. It's not this rule either. We must be in this rule. So we have to start out with an empty one, and then our next one is going to be a format, and a format is here. So we expect some kind of identifier, which we would match with GIF. And then we would say, okay, we have some optional arguments. Optional arguments has to start with a parentheses, so when it shifts in the bracket, it's like, oh, that's not a parentheses, so skip the optional arguments. Okay, there's the left bracket, the left brace. So we're still matching this rule, and then we match all the span statements, which is all of the contents here. And then the right brace causes it to reduce it down to a format. And whenever you reduce, you can take your inputs and package them into the output of the rule. So in this case, the format that you made is the output of the rule, and that format is then inserted into the map of formats, which then becomes the output of the formats rule. So yeah, if you played around with other parser generators, other crates, or other libraries, it probably seems familiar. The thing about Lollipop and Logos is that they're specific for Rust, so the syntax here is Rust-like, and the reduction side effect code is in Rust. So whenever you reduce a bunch of tokens into using a rule to a higher order construct, it executes this code as a side effect, and it has a return value. This is the type, and that's the actual value of what type we're returning. So yeah, all of this gets compiled, and if there's a syntax error in here, we don't even get to the parsing stage. My program will say, hey, there's a syntax file with the formats, and it'll print that out, and it won't show anything on the right. So as a demonstration of that, if I just like delete that brace and save, and then run my code again, it'll say error parsing formats file, and it'll actually tell me it's on line 2, columns 5 to 9, mode expected, or mode unexpected. So it's because mode is a built-in reserved word, and it's like I didn't expect to see mode there. I expected either an open parentheses or an open brace, right? So when I save that again, now it loads it, and we see the output here on the right. So it's a two-stage thing. Compile the formats, and then use the compiled formats as like a recipe to walk through the data file you give it. If I close the data file, for example, now there's nothing, because although it knows some formats, you didn't give it anything to parse with those formats. Similarly, if I close the config and I open the data file again, like sure, you have some data, but the format GIF is unknown. I don't know how to parse it because you haven't told me about it. So open the config GIF toml again, and now it knows how to parse it again. Oh, kitty left. You know what would be cool is if I had something that automatically turned the camera on and off as the cat came and went. All right, so let's get back to JSON. So I was working here, I was replacing this alternate syntax, which is very error greedy. It hides errors, and using a look ahead syntax instead, so that we're going to look ahead one character, and if we see that it's going to be an object, we're going to insist that it be an object. So hopefully this will make it a little bit easier to see errors in the GIF format. So I'm going to open the, not GIF, JPEG. Not JPEG. JSON. One day we'll do JPEG, but not today. By the way, the reason why I have both a JSON FMT and JSON.toml is because I wanted there to be the flexibility to have multiple format files, and also the format file alone isn't enough. You also have to tell it what the root format is. So like, what do you start with? In my case, it's document for JSON, because document allows me to strip off the optional white space and before and after the actual value in the file. Otherwise, I just say it's a value. Okay, so we're still not good enough because it's still... Is it because I didn't save? Right. Okay. I thought that would be enough for it to get into object and have object return an error. So it should have at least said it was an object. It's still having a problem on line 260. Oh, it's hitting that else. Just so I can help debug this, I'm gonna say next is next, and then we'll see sort of like printfs. Next is a G. Oh, because I have the GIF file still loaded. Yeah, we actually want to open a JSON file. Well, hello, Kitty. Kitty's down there, trying to get my attention. Okay, cool. So it got further as an open thing. So it knows it's an object. It got to the third element, and it said it expected a literal there, and it said index 4 is out of range. Okay, so that's the error I was hoping to see, because that was what I ran into last stream, and we were tossing the error out and never seeing this because we were inside of an alt syntax. That's one downside of this alt syntax, is because it's supposed to, like, it doesn't know if it's an object, string, or a list. And so if there's an error parsing it as a string, it would have, or a literal, it just would have skipped it and suppressed the error by design. So now by looking ahead one character and knowing that it should be either an object, string, list, or whatever, now we're forcing it to that it has to be that format. Otherwise, we're going to actually treat the error as something we want to report. So now I know that on line 219, I have some kind of out of range indexing going on. And I knew that because I found that off stream the other day. It's broken here because I had changed, like I said at the beginning of the stream, I had changed length of a string from being number of characters to being number of bytes. So now that we know it's the number of bytes, and that I always give it ASCII string literals, I can multiply by 8. I think that's right? No, divide by 8, because it's not in bytes, it's in bits, because of another consistency rule I have. So if the length is in bits, I want to divide by 8 to get the number of bytes. That should fix this parsing, and now we're back to being good. Hey there, A squared and Sarian. So do I have any particular use case, like a broader project that will use this, or are you mostly doing this because it's fun? Mostly because it's fun, but also in the past, I've had assignments at work which really could have used one of these things, and I actually made one kind of like this at that job, where, like, I was working on a team that was making something that was processing video files, and sometimes we'd get like a video file that like wouldn't play right, or someone said, "Hey, I recorded this on a camcorder and it got like the what was it? The memory card, I forget the kind of memory card they had at the time. Memory card had a malfunction, and hey, my movie got corrupted. And it's really hard for a lot of the complicated video formats to go in there and figure out what's wrong with the file. A lot of times, like, file players will just kind of give up and not tell you what's wrong with the file. So something like this would let you analyze, like, what went wrong and where. Hey there, Krasner, how are you doing? So, for example, I could, oh, and that reminds me of another to-do item I wanted to do. And I don't think I have it written down, so let me add it. Yeah. Detect when open data file changes, and if it does, reload. And I'll demonstrate the shortcoming to that. See, like if I go and intentionally damage the JSON file we're looking at, let's say I leave off that double quote, right? You can see VS Code is like, oh, that's an unterminated string. It's going to lead into a bunch of other crazy stuff. There's actually two things. I should probably damage it in a different way because it knows it's an unexpected end of string because it handles the new line character. Let's damage it in a way that, like, how about if I don't have a comma there, right? If I don't have a comma there, it's going to say that it expected a comma, right? It's smart enough to know that, but is my parser smart enough? Well, for one thing, my parser didn't reload the file when I hit change it, so we're going to fix that later. But for now, I'm just going to reopen that same file. So now we know that there's an error, and it'll say like close brace expected. I can get rid of that warning that I put in, by the way. Close brace expected, and we can actually drill down and see at what point did it actually hit that error, and I can actually click it. And so getting back to your question of a particular use case, it would be something like this, but imagine the file being like 100 times as complex as JSON, and you just have no other tool that can go in and you can pinpoint the actual byte where a comma was expected, right? This will actually, if I drill down far enough, it should let me find the exact byte where it expected a close brace, and it's like, oh, yeah, there's a comma missing, right? Another thing you can do is, like, if you see a damaged area in the file, you if my parser is able to parse up to that point, you can click it and you can see where in the data structure that byte is. So if you see something funny in the file, in the raw hex dump or the ASCII dump or whatever, you can click it and find or why it doesn't go down. Oh, there we go. You can see where it is in the overall composition. Fun fact, double quote and B are only 1 bit apart, such that double quote can transmute into B if a single bit gets forcibly set. That's true. It's true about a lot of ASCII, especially the higher order bits. Text formats are designed to be human readable. It's not that useful, but for binary, oh yeah. So I was using JSON just because I think it's more understandable to a Twitch viewer. But if I switch back to GIF, you saw earlier that like there's really nothing you can get from the dump other than maybe at the beginning, and then there's sometimes embedded strings like the Netscape app extension. Yeah, other than that, you really do need the tool to interpret the data for you. So yeah, missing comma, right? That's all it is then when I reload the file. Another thing is when it reloads, it collapses the whole composition. This might be harder to do, but it would be kind of cool if it didn't. I think I'll at least put that on the to-do list as consider saving, well, or remembering what parts of the output data composition in the GUI are expanded and try to recover those expanded states after reloading. Now, we won't always be able to do that because if you do a sufficiently complex change to your data or your format, then the composition is going to look all different. But if it looks the same, then we can maybe recover. Like if we happen to be looking at a specific point deep in the structure, like here, we reloaded, it would be nice if it remembered, oh yeah, let's expand the object's elements and expand element 4 and expand its value and expand its element down to 0. Hey there, Sarian. Would it be worth it, instead of having a single length function, having both a bit length and byte length so it's clear exactly what you meant? I thought about that. I think between bytes and bits, since they're always a factor of 8 apart from each other, I'd rather just name it something specific like bit length, and then byte length is just bit length divided by 8. Where I might want to have a separate function would be like string length, more specifically like UTF-8 string length, and then it would not be simply dividing by 8 because some characters are more than 8 bits wide, right? Actually, I had an example of that. I put in like favorite emoji in here somewhere, right? Oh, did I delete it? Is it not here anymore? Oh, it's not here anymore. Why is that? Okay, but here's a good example, which we can't load yet though, because it's got these sequences we don't support. Let me add it back in here. I must have deleted it at some point. And how do I get emojis with this thing again? I think I just got it from the browser. Have it restore the session I had. And I think I got it from JSON, one of these. Yeah, I just copied from Wikipedia. So my parser knows about UTF-8, and I'll show you how. The way you'd count the length of this string, which is just this code point here, it's a single character. So it's UTF-8 character length would be 1, but its length in bytes would be 4. Grab poop? Okay. How many ASCII or how many bytes do you think poop is? It's probably 4 because most second favorite. Actually, we can just turn this into favorite emojis and make it a list. Most emojis are 4 characters. And yeah, we need to implement the auto reload. Favorite emojis. So you see how when I click on it, it figures out which part of the character it is. Oh, I think that's cool. That's one of the reasons I made the tool in the first place. It's like you see this dot 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 and like, what the heck is that? Oh, it's the encoding of a single character in the string. Not work very well with inserts and deletions. You think the position approach should be simpler than trying to interpret the meanings of the tree of elements? Yeah, I kind of stretched things in the rules for literal. I knew that I would, in all the places I use expect literal, it would be ASCII strings where we know each character is 1 byte. And so when I do the indexing is also ambiguous. Are we indexing by byte? Or are we indexing by character? Or by bit? Right? Right now it is indexing by byte. That's why we had to turn the length in bits back to bytes. But perhaps it's better to index by characters or something else like that. Oh, I saw. I didn't see the first part. I saw the second part. Whenever you use sufficient to store the selected positions in the file, when the file is reloaded, expand everything that contains that position. That would work unless I unselected the position by doing something like this. See how like this is still open, but we have selected something else up here? Like I didn't even need to do the search thing. If you expand more than 2 things, now if I reloaded and just took our selected position, then it would reload like that, and you'd be like, well, I kind of wanted to compare those two. I don't know. Maybe it's too much. I don't know. But right now it completely collapses everything and has no memory, so it's sort of annoying if you do a lot of changes. I found myself annoyed the other day where I'd have to keep drilling down to where I was looking at before. The other way I could have but the other way to handle that would be like this. If I just simulate that, is I know it was around here, so I can click there and it drills down for me. So that's another alternate thing, is maybe it just remembers the last byte we had selected and just auto drills down by byte. Actually, that's what you said. Position in the file. I guess, yeah. If you meant by position in the file, like the bytes we selected before, and it just auto drills down, that would actually be the easiest way to do it. That's probably what I'm going to start with, a squared. Yeah, I think we'll try that. Yeah. Classical UI problems when doing front end, you have to keep recreating the same state over and over again. Yeah. I think it should be pretty good enough to auto drill down to the byte, the last byte you clicked. See, when I click on the whitespace characters, you see how it selects the whole object? That's because these characters are actually ignored in the syntax. These ones right here. I have them ignored as in they don't show up in the data tree. So it when you click on something that's ignored, it finds it starts with the narrowest context and then expands out until it finds an object in the data composition that contains what you clicked. And when you click an ignored byte, it's not in the data composition, so it goes up and up and up until it says, "Oh, that object contains that byte," but none of its children do. In fact, element overall, it doesn't have a single range. It's broken up. If I click on the elements, though, see how it skips over the white space? You know, it's because the white space is a hidden member of the parent object and not a member of the individual elements here. The compromise between cluttering up the data display and making it possible to drill down to a specific character. So, like, yeah, if I were to like not ignore white space, and I guess that would be here. We don't ignore the white space there. Now I can click white space characters in here sometimes. I guess it's, yeah, before. I can click white space characters before and after elements. Okay, I can't click there though. Weird. Oh, because we have an error. Close brace expected. What did I mess up? For did I hose something by accident? I did. I got rid of. No, I didn't. Wait, what? By not ignoring it? Oh, because yeah, you can't have two things with the same name, so I have to call it like W1 and W2. If it's not ignored, they have to have distinct names because they'll show up in the composition here. So now when I click here, we get the characters that are in the optional white space, but it's gonna clutter it, right? You have the W1s and the W2s that are cluttering our composition. Like we only had one place where there actually were characters after an element, and that was at the very end. I think the reason why clicking on like, what was it, down here somewhere, wasn't doing anything is because it's because of that error, and also some there are other places where you have optional white space. Anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole with that. Suffice to say that ignoring elements like that has a side effect of sometimes you can't locate. It's not going to be in the data tree, so clicking on it won't get you anywhere. It'll get you to like the innermost context that holds that byte. The compilation error on the language, maybe. I think there was, and I just didn't look for it. So if I do that and that, I think I do get an error. Oh, right. Because the language itself doesn't care what you put for the name here and here. It just stores it in the abstract syntax tree. I'll show you exactly where. It is in the parse AST. Okay, I forget the structure of AST. Statement, right? Yeah, there's a parse statement. I had it, and then I clicked away from it and it went somewhere else. So there was an optional name, right? But there's no built-in check in the compiler to look at. Well, backing up a little bit, like statement ends up going into a format as statements, right? So if you have two statements in there that are going to end up parsing two different things and end up giving the same name, which is not allowed, it's not something that the language itself checks for, or the compiler itself checks for. In order to check for that, I guess I would have to have some check in the grammar, the parser generator. I'd have to have something in here. In span statements, I guess. Yeah, when we're assembling a chain of statements, something would have to go loop through these statements and look for collisions. So I didn't do that. I kept it simple here. So the effect of that is we don't actually know a collision will happen until we go through that recipe, and then we see, oh, there's a collision on optional whitespace. There are two things we parse that end up with the same name, but they're in different places. So it's called a collision. So we could check in the compiler ahead of time, but it would be extra work in the compiler. So because I had made the decision, maybe a naive decision, to just keep the parser generator simple and not check for that, the side effect is that we don't know that there's a problem there until we actually try to parse something with it, and then we get a collision. But it does remember where the collision was. So it says it's on line 30. So I could go back to here and say, oh, it collided on that. Oh, I see, because we have another one right here. So it's a trade-off, right? There's lots of trade-offs in programming and in engineering in general. Oh, you'd want me to do another pass? Probably better to not have stuff like this in the parser, but to have a second pass after parsing. So something that would go for every group of statements, look through and see if there's a possible collision, right? It might get tricky because you could do something like this. If element dot something equals 2, have another optional whitespace. And then if this never ends up being true, you would not have a collision. You'd only have it's like a possible collision. It's if it's inside a conditional. And you won't know if it's 2 until you actually at runtime parse it. And so it's not possible to set up an invariant unless you were somehow able to prove at compile time that this could never be 2. Like maybe the something is a single bit. It's like, well, we'll never return true, so we'll never get into here. And then not only would we say there would have been a collision, but you could say, hey, this is never executed. So that's like more advanced static analysis would probably, that's what I feel like I would be opening up that can of worms. That if we did a second pass, we're going down the rabbit hole of possibly like doing a whole bunch of static analysis that could get pretty deep pretty quick. Maybe we catch 80% of it and just like pass on the other 20%, but I wouldn't be able to make like strong guarantees. We'd still have the possibility of runtime collisions. And then like, well, it's just easier to pass the buck to the runtime, right? Sort of the idea you do with general programming languages. Yeah. So like, yeah, I could do a second pass and just look for simple things like that and say, hey, that's obviously going to collide. And then if it's inside a conditional, maybe we don't have an error, we allow it, and then we still have to check at runtime for a collision, right? Still very useful. Use example C Rust lifetimes. Yeah, and I know there's like stuff about Rust that I really love because they do that. Maybe we'll get there, huh? How about? I think it's worthy to consider some static analysis of parsing rules. For example, 2 parts in the same component. That obviously would get the same name. Can be rejected at compile time. Yeah, so there's like maybe some easy things we can do to catch some like large percentage of possible mistakes like that. If I made the mistake here, just demonstrating what ignored versus non-ignored is, then hey, the compiler time check if that might be worthwhile. So, have I done enough to clean up the JSON stuff? I want to make sure I catch all the other places where we have alt and maybe consider removing it. Oh, didn't list have something in it? Oh, number needs to be cleaned up. Where was list again? This doesn't have breadcrumbs for it, no. The reason that this does any kind of syntax highlighting at all is because I made a very minimal syntax highlighter extension for my language. But it doesn't have enough insight into the grammar to know to be able to make breadcrumbs. So yeah, here's list. Okay, I have alt, but for comma. I guess what'll happen is if we miss a comma, it'll say a bracket was expected, rather than that a comma was missing. I think that's fine. And where else do I use alt? So in strings, which reminds me, I had the to-do item to handle escape sequences. Maybe we'll look into that a little bit. If we fail to parse a character, it'll just expect a quote, right? And it'll say a quote is expected. I think that's okay then, as long as we get a legitimate error out of it. Okay, inside numbers. That fails. Won't get an error. It'll break out of the loop. And then actually it just breaks all the way out, right? It'll just stop and interpret the next byte as the next thing after the number. I think that's fine. There and there. Oh, bool. You ever use bool? I don't, do I? I don't think we actually need bool. I think it's a dead syntax. Same thing with null, right? Yeah, I don't think we need that. That was old. I had something down here. Use this char string. I don't think we actually use char string. Dead syntax we don't need. I don't need this anymore now that I fixed that. So this was the main thing, the look ahead. Oh, I wanted to check if I support this. I don't know if I do. See if we do. We do not. Probably got down to that first number and was like, I have no idea how to parse that. Yeah. I'm gonna add that to the to-do list because I think that we can do that. So actually why did I not get an error about that? Let's clear that and reload and see why. So the first error is at 236. So it never even tried to parse it as a number because, oh, that should have been next. That's why. Now let's see. Oh, it actually worked. So I do have string comparisons then I don't need a to-do list item. That's nice. Don't need it. Oh, the collapsing areas, it does figure that out. You can see like not only does it know the outermost, it basically wherever it sees a left curly brace, it makes a collapsible area. And by the way, did you notice that my code does the same? Check this out. I expand a bunch of stuff. Then I scroll. Look at that. These two rows remain on top even though we're scrolling. See it? See that? I really wanted that and I didn't have it for a long, long time and I finally added it and now I really love it because no matter how deep I go in the structure, I'll always see that we came from the very top as an object, element 6, list, value object, element 1, string. So I think that's invaluable. Before, it would just show you the rows immediately before that, and you would have no idea that you were still in element 6. Yeah. So the breakthrough that I had is when I figured out that any given line, if we count the number of levels deep it is, then if we track like the number of previous rows we would need to see all of its ancestors, we just throw away all the ones that came before because they were not all of their, like if you consider all the ones we would have drawn at right above the 4, all of these rows we can't see their entire ancestor chain. The first row that we can is this one with the 4. So that's where we start drawing, and then we just walk the ancestor chain and draw these rows in reverse order. Like that's a rough description of the algorithm. And if you can see a little bit more, you do it. So like in this case, there's enough room not only for the 1 but also the 0. And if I scroll up a little bit more, like, okay, we could see a little bit more of the structure that wasn't in the ancestor chain. But you see how it's like it prefers to keep the root of the ancestor tree always there if it can. It never replaces it with anything else, no matter how deep you go or how far you scroll. Like 6 always remains on screen as long as any row under element 6 is still eligible to be drawn. As soon as I scroll down enough where 6 is now, there's nothing in 6 can be drawn because we're scrolled down far enough. Now it no longer even draws a 6 at all. We go into 7. But yeah, I really like how that worked out. Now it was a real pain in the butt to get the vertical line to draw the correct number of rows down. I'm pretty sure the logic is really ugly, and I never went back and cleaned that up. But yeah, I should remove all the warnings. I put in a warning somewhere to help me debug something. Yeah, this thing. Oh, another thing is I think we should clear the log every time we reload, because I don't think there's any point to keep it. Either we should clear the log, or maybe like log messages from a previous iteration of processing should be in a different color or above a boundary or something. I think it's simplest to just auto clear the log before every parse. I think that makes sense. Yeah, error fatigue. I don't know if these errors are new or old, right? So I find myself hitting clear and then reloading to make sure. In this case, there's no errors. All right. Oh, I promised to show UTF-8. I was really happy how that turned out. So if you don't know UTF-8, here's a really brief summary. We encode any character from the very large set of possible characters that go all the way up to 10,000 hex, or actually 10,000 11,000 hex. And we do it in a way where the most often the characters you run into could fit in 1 byte. So they put the most common 128 characters, and there's like political and background history into what characters were chosen, because it's like all the ASCII character codes ended up there. But in general, it's a compression scheme to keep text relatively small. So instead of always making a character 4 bytes, now you make most of the common characters 1 byte, but you make the uncommon ones longer. You end up with 4 categories, right? Codes that are 1, 2, 3, or 4 bytes long. And to decode them, you look at the first few bits. So basically mirrored that in our parser. We look ahead 4 bits. We look for if we're masking out, if we're just looking at the first of those 4 bits and it's a 0, then it's 1 byte. Otherwise, we look at the first 3 bits. If it's 1, 1, 0, it's 2 bytes, etc. And that should mirror that pretty closely. One thing I don't do is look at the fixed bits in the 2nd through 4th bytes. It's always 1, 0. I just ignore them. We could make it stricter, and we could not ignore it and require it to be exactly equal to the pattern 1, 0. Otherwise, it's bad code. I just chose to ignore it, so it's a lot more lenient than other decoders would be. But this I use everywhere in the JSON format. We could make this built in, but I just thought it was cool to not build it and actually have it be a building block that we can reuse. So when you see UTF-8 character, it's invoking this sub format to get the next character. And we don't know until we actually parse whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 bytes long. There's technically redundant information that helps with self-synchronization and corrupt detection and recovery. I'm not sure I think I lost the context for that, if you meant the clearing the log or something else, but as always, A squared, I agree with everything you say. So what I would really like to do is not have to have this special case, but I would have to support this. Right? I had to do that. And my parsing language doesn't support that right now. But it might not be too hard to add, because that's a special escape code that I think we ought to be able to do. In fact, I'm wondering if I'm misremembering, and maybe this already works. Let's see. Nope, error parsing identifier string unexpected. So it got to here, and it couldn't grok that. So maybe we could fix that. I think that'd be useful to do right now. Unless I promised something else and I forgot. Let's fix that right now. So that all goes back to the lexer, right? So ideally, we want to do test-driven development. I want to test for an escaped, not an output. I guess it's in lib. Okay, here's where all my tests are, right? So I want to in here. I want to test for string. There's a lot of test cases. I'm using what is it called? Whatever gets you this test case thing. Test case. There's a crate called test case that if you have that, is there anything that I had to do other than put it in my cargo toml? Oh, I had to use test case. If you use that, then you get this new kind of macro test case that's really cool, because you can just make one unit test, which I have for string, and then have a whole bunch of cases for it. So the case is generally like, make a new lexer and give it the input and collect on the lexer, tokenizes the input to an output of tokens, and we collect that into a vector, and then we just say, hey, take the expected output and what am I doing here? Oh, these strings are converted into spans to make the types match, because the type of the location is this location type, which is a struct, and this is just an easy way to assemble those structs in a concise way. So I have this extra step in here to convert the start strings into start locations using into, because location has a from string where we just do some simple interpretation with parse. And I'm digging too deep to actually show that, but you get the idea. So anyway, it's just comparing what the Lexer outputs with what we expect it to output, and I have it arranged in a vector in a way that it's easy to express. And so then you just assemble all the literal input strings and the output tokens that the Lexer should output. So I should have in here somewhere like escape sequences. Maybe I don't. Maybe the problem is we should have supported it, but I didn't. Oh, here we go. So we support \t for tab. So I just never had a case for a double quote. So probably might as well put it here, right? So hello, double quote world should just come across as that, right? Double quote. The fixed bits in the second plus bytes of evade coding are almost all technically redundant. That's what I thought too. It might explain here why. Because technically you could use all 8 bits, right? But there's probably a reason for like error resiliency to make it required to be a 1-0. Maybe that's so you can detect bad bits in the first byte and you don't completely lose the sequence. I think that was it. It was something like if you lose your position in the sequence, you just keep discarding bytes until you see a byte that doesn't start with 1-0. And now you're at a character boundary again. Is that right? Does that sound right, A squared? It's like if you don't know where if you lost your synchronization, you just search for the first byte that doesn't start with 1-0, and now you're in a byte 1 again. Yeah. It probably says that down here, and I just forgot until now. All right. So if I run this, I bet it's gonna fail. Because if it didn't fail, then it would have just worked before. Hey, look, it fails. So we get an Lexer error bad string. The one bad side effect of having a cat, the little cat hairs that fly around the room, and sometimes they land right into the mouse, and they make my mouse malfunction. I have to like brush away the cat hairs. Really, it's dark outside, so I should probably close the blinds. Close those blinds. Show you the cool blinds that I have. Look at that. Automatically closing blinds. Modern technology is awesome. It struck the camera on its way down even. Whoa. All right. Still better than having to clean a mouse ball? Oh, yeah. Yeah, but the cat, you have to kind of live with the fact that cat hair gets everywhere. I heard a Discord bleep. Oh, okay. Unrelated to the stream. All right. So let's, why did I keep, we have unit tests to fix. Right, bad string, we don't want it to be a bad string. So it probably has to do with the really complicated post-processing we do here, right? I probably just didn't handle it. Yeah, that's as easy as that. So let's just handle it. It's actually an easier code, right? It's just like one of these. We're just gonna push a specific character out. So it's 22, right? And then we're done. Oh, and it's too many characters. It's triggered the too many lines. We're 2 lines over the limit. Look at that. No! This should be refactored anyway. Let's refactor it later. So I just kind of cheat in the short term. But I do leave myself a to-do. To refactor it. Anyway, fix this. Alright, so that was easier than I thought it would be. Change or match regex to. It turns out the match regex already had support for that, because I was looking at that the other day. It had support for that, but I just forgot to add that case. I just didn't have this case. Match regex actually was pretty smart because I didn't write it. Someone smarter than me wrote it. Credit goes to Phil Ho and Philip Kirkbride. Stack Overflow. So I just added something to the pattern to prevent matching multi-line strings, but it's right here. It doesn't support the \u or \x. That would be more elaborate, but at least it should match \anything. It's just if it's a character that we don't know how to interpret, then we end up in the this one where we call it a bad string. Because we if it's not one of these other characters, it needs to be an octal. Because I support \, and then a digit, but as long as the digit's octal. One of this basically, right? If it's hex, it has to be an X in front, and we don't support the U yet. So yeah, this is all you really need to as a special case, because that just prevents it from accidentally matching the end double quote. And I wouldn't have been able to come up with this on my own. I wanted to avoid having to figure it out on my own. I just looked it up on Stack Overflow. So credit where credit is due. Okay, I'm gonna send this out of my virtual machine just as a backup. Oh, I should be able to verify now that this works. Okay. Guess while that's running, I'll open up JSON. So this will work now, right? Cool. No, it's still broken. Identifier string expected on 219. Oh, because I'm missing the bracket. Okay, and forgot to clear, so we're clearing now. All right, cool. There were 2 errors there, right? What if I temporarily undo this one? Output RS, right? It was up here. Let me comment this out for a second just to make sure that I don't get those 2 errors convolved together. If that's commented out, then rerun this. Do I get the same error or do I get a different error? The way I handle lexing strings, the logos was just by looking for the open double quote, grabbing the rest of the string, and handling escaping in the callback. But how do you know where the string ends, though? I guess. You must have had to skip past double quotes that had a backslash right before, right? In order to find, you have to find the end back double quote. Okay, so we just get bad string. We don't get the thing about expected something. Just as bad string on 218 because it sees that and it matches that, but then it in the callback it doesn't know how to handle that this character in that position right here. Oh, like you can tell Alexa how many characters to consume. But how do you know how many characters to tell the Alexa to consume though? Out of curiosity. So you're saying like instead of using regex, you used just a callback, or do you have a simpler regex, and in the callback you just look how do you I'm using the regex to see the end double quote. How would you find it if you didn't use a regular expression? I guess. Out of curiosity, you can get the remainder of it, but then just iterate over it. Oh, and the return value of the callback tells Alexa how many you actually took. I missed that part. Yeah, how are we telling Alexa how many we actually consumed? I guess if it's a regex, we get the whole thing, right? Oh, you actually use you have the number of characters you consumed as the return value. So what do you where do you actually use? How do you use that in the in the macro, or how does that feed back into logos? Is it just Oh, is it an alternate? You use a different macro then? So with the, I guess if you use the regex macro, you have to provide a function that returns this specific type, right? Or does it support more than one type? I'm returning a result string or an error. So maybe your callback, or maybe my callback as well, I could return a different kind of thing, and it could include the number of characters. That's more than I knew. But either way, yeah, that's cool. That makes logos even cooler. Oh, it's just token. Okay. Oh, it was in there. I just didn't scroll around far enough. I just needed to go up. Okay. Oh, okay. So the way you did it is in token. You had a callback here, or you in your case you had uh you had one of these. If I could type correctly, you had a closure like that. Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. Logos is cool. All right, now we're gonna say I had a to-do item list for that, to list item for that, right? Did I not? Yeah, here it is. Done. Okay. Yeah, I guess I decided at some when I went way back when I did this, I decided to play with fire and use regular expressions. So you were just smarter than me. We'll leave that window Okay, I think I want to do this one next because I think it's going to be pretty easy. The idea there is if we're parsing something here, and let's say I go like add a new favorite emoji. Right now we have two favorite emojis, and I said, well, actually, I have another emoji I like. Um, Let me do this. Oh, Mr. Destructoid's not an emoji. That's not, is it? I used to know the key get an emoji. Does anyone happen to know the key combination to get the emoji picker in Linux? I know how to use either Linux or Mac. Control dot? Okay, then what settings? Settings. Emoji. I didn't set it here. Why do I have a note off stream that says I did it in G settings? Okay. Not in VS Code. List. Get. Um, oh, I cleared it. Oh, because it was stealing the emoji hotkey was stealing my control dot that I used other. Okay, so I actually don't have it set up for. Actually, have it cleared. I'm just gonna look off stream and just go to like random emojis. Random emoji generators. Give me okay. There we go. Bicycle. I like it. Bicycle. So I added a new favorite emoji and I go back to my tool and it didn't update it. I would like it to do that. Right now I have to manually do file open data and I have to open the same file again, and there's my new bicycle. The other thing is it used to show an actual emoji there, and we did the escaping on purpose to show non-printable characters. But I think it went too far and now it's hiding emojis that it could show. You just have to believe me. It's a bicycle emoji. So let's work on auto reload. So the way I had this working, there's a file watcher in the GUI. File watcher. And it actually debounces stuff. So if I see where it's referenced in the app. Here's where we make one. And then that gets stored in our app state here. And here's where we watch the config file. And here's where we watch. Oh, we watch the config file in two places. No, there's where we watch the config file. This is where we watch a format file because this is in a loop. And this is the path to one of the format files. What's missing is a watch for the data file. And similarly for there's an unwatch if you open a new config file, close the config file, and I guess it's in two places. close config file. Wait, why do I have this in two places? This seems redundant to me. Oh, no. One's to unwatch the format files, and the other one's to unwatch the config file itself. Because the close config file actually doesn't know the name of the config file. Wait a minute, but it's self-config file. Wouldn't it know that? Okay, why do I have it in two? Why don't I just do it in close config file then? Doesn't it make sense to do it in config file? I can't think of a reason why I don't just move this to close config file and put that here. Unless maybe close config file is called from more than one place. Yeah, see, this is redundant. Why are we doing that? Oh, there might not be one open. I think that's why. It's already in an if, so then there's no reason. Yeah, okay. Is that why reload doesn't stop watching the config file? Load config file doesn't watch it, does it? But I could just move okay, so we could move it into one place, but then I would have to also move the watching code into load. But maybe that makes sense anyway. So here's the watching code, right? So we would do watch on the self-config file. So take that out. I would just have to remember to watch it here. Well, I could just do it here then. Well, it's only if it succeeds, right? No, we want to do it always. Yeah, it should be unconditional. So that goes here then. Yeah, then so load config file watches the config file and the format files, and then it's balanced with close config file, which unwatches the config file and the format files. Okay, makes much more sense to me. So now we just need, so that's config, it's watching the config file and the format files, but not the data file. The data file we should watch and unwatch in a balanced set, probably in this, if we have functions to load and to open and close the data file. Does load data file. Where do we unload it? What about handle close data file? Wait. Oh, here we go. Okay, so why don't I have a handle open data file? Why don't I have a handle close data file? Is there a reason why I didn't? Why don't I just fix that right now? Refactor, back to function, call it close data file. Or handle close data file, right? It's handling a message to actually close it. Then I can move. Actually, it's, yeah. I've been trying to keep this in alphabetical order. It would go right above here. All right. Great. I think what I was doing is I was lazily refactoring out, like, this should be handle open config file. You know, I also noticed that it's not consistently named. Unless you consider this as part of the handle. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's why. It's like specifically handling the message to close the config file would be close the config file and then forget about it in the config. Right. Anyway, I think I've been lazy about this. I've been adding handlers as the match case gets big, but yeah, like I totally forgot this. I didn't do this one at all. Should I just do them now? I should just do them now. So this is handle close config file. Whoop. Changed what my cursor was pointing at. Checked into function, handle close config file. I think I should have done this from the start, not waited so long. So close config file goes before handle close data file, and then we're just gonna do it for all of them. Even the one-liner, I think it should just be consistent, right? This is handle clear log. Really wish, and maybe someone's made a plugin for this and I just don't know what it is. I really wish that there was an auto sort for methods of inside an impl. Clear log. Okay. The fact that I have to do this manually is sort of less than ideal. Doesn't need to be mutable. All right. This is handle open config file. I don't mind that it can't guess the method name. I just mind that I have to sort it. Actually, that's probably in the right place already. And this can be by reference. Remove the reference here because it's double reference. I wonder why I don't get a warning that doing a double reference. Shouldn't it say like I don't need to do that? Oh, probably because there's an error. Because of that, right? If I go down there and add that reference back, it'll probably warn me. Yep. The warning is probably change it to path. Alright, that's why. You keep forgetting, if you have a compiler error, you might not see the warnings. This is handle select data component. Vector function handle select data component. Handle select, so S handle select after redraw. All right. And this there's a smaller name for that, right? Shared. That's another thing I find annoying with the refactoring. It doesn't deduce type aliases for you where it could have. Okay, one more, and then this is going to look really nice. Handle select byte. Handle select byte. Comes before this one. Okay, I'm actually curious if can I find an extension sort Rust sort methods. Hey, anybody out there want to write an extension that'll sort Rust methods? Let me go to Ask Google, my AI overlord these days. Is there a Rust? Is there an extension to VS Code that can sort methods in Rust code alphabetically by name? Not a standard feature of Rust Analyzer or Rust format tools. Rust format handles some sorting tasks, such as for imports. It doesn't currently offer a specific setting to sort methods alphabetically within a file or struct. However, you can achieve this by using general text sorting extensions within VS Code. One example is sort lines extension. How would sorting lines sort methods, though? Well, it's yeah. The AI says that it's not a feature of it's. Well, Rust FMT should do it, right? Like right now, Rust FMT is the guy that when I hit save there, it automatically corrects the indentation. Ideally, it would also another thing it sorts is it can sort uses. So if I put config after drawing and hit save, it sorts them, right? That's Rust FMT. I think Rust FMT is the one that should sort methods by name alphabetically. It doesn't do it yet. Let's see if someone's asked for it. Dive deeper in AI mode. So I'm going to ask it, is there currently any enhancement requests open for Rust FMT to do this? And it says, yes, there are discussions and requests related to sorting within Rust FMT on GitHub. Okay, so it's been requested since February 2019. It has garnered significant positive reactions. Yep, so it's been asked for. See, like, I should be doing more things with AI. Probably not write my code because that's the fun stuff. But like, I shouldn't hesitate to look this stuff up with AI. So someone asked for this 6 years ago. It still hasn't been done. Is this the issue that you found, Sarian? Oh, you think a code assist will do it? I can look for it, but like, it should just be something built into Rust FMT. Let's see what the current status is. Just a bunch of plus ones. It's, I guess that's low priority. Okay, you found an issue in Rust Analyzer. So yeah, it looks like they're saying if there's a automatic sorting attribute, it would trigger it. Anyway, let's see. Let's put it out. Let's put one out of order for a moment. And you're saying that like, if I go like to this top impl, yeah, it's not an action I can do on the impl right now. Part of the type name, yeah, just doesn't show up. It's like something it doesn't know how to do. Bummer. I just for me, I find stuff quicker if it's sorted. So it should have worked, but there's a bug. You know what's funny is like my text is so large that it didn't quite fit and it has to wrap that. Oh, there is something in there. Wait, what? What is he selecting? Looks like he's selecting the F. Oh, so instead of putting the cursor on it, I have to actually highlight a part of it. All right. So let's see if that actually works. So selecting a part of app. No, I don't even get that. So I just get generate trait or extract module. No actions. It's even more broken. Even more broken for me than this guy said it was. So I guess it should show me, but I can't even get that. Huh. I mean, maybe I'm doing something weird in my code that's why it doesn't work. Yeah. Oh well. Where was I? I was gonna have the data file get watched. So there should be a handle open data file and close data file. So now I think it's just as simple as doing it this. So self.watcher file watcher watch path, and we're being generous and ignoring if there's an error. So close data file. I want to balance it the same way with an unwatch. Here I got to do self. Do we not remember the data file? That might be something we have to add. I might not actually be saving it in the app state. We give something to the info overlay. We open it. This thing might bitstream handle. So I don't even remember the type. Yeah, I erased the type anyway. So I guess I do need to store it. What language is this? This is Rust. So yeah, we have to I guess what we could do is take it out. It's similar to how we would do in close config file, right? If there is a path, then unwatch it. Data file doesn't exist yet, so we'll just have to add it. Yeah, so we'll just add it. Option path buff, just like our old config file, and then you have to actually set it to something here. Then I need to remember to set it. Because we're taking it out, so we're unsetting it here, but in handle open, we should set it. Right? I think last time we used path is there, so I can just do it here, right? Well, we're only borrowing it, so I can set it anywhere. I just have to clone it. Let me make sure that there's no other paths into load data file. Oh, that's a problem. Yeah, it's more C++ like. You work with C# for your job? Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit lower level. But it's got a bunch of features, I would say, that C++ doesn't have. At least not yet. The biggest one being lifetime annotations. So when you see that, static, because drawing actually has surface, which has a source window handle that has a lifetime, so it's not guaranteed to be valid for the whole life of the program. It's only going to be valid until the window is closed. So the language has static analysis tools to allow you to define lifetimes that are less than the duration of the program, and then allow you to like set make sure your types all properly fit all the constraints that are implied by having limited lifetimes. Like this is a surface for a window. It static analysis guarantees that that surface won't live longer than the actual window handle, and the way it's done is through you annotate your reference to the window handle with this lifetime. There's a bunch of types around this, and the keyword means something, but just the gist of it is that the surface structure has a reference to a window handle, but there's a static not static, a compile time declared invariant that says this surface cannot live longer than the window handle. Like the window handle has to be valid for the entire lifetime of the surface, and you do it by attaching this like as in a template parameter, or they call it a generic parameter. But it's specifically with a single tick, it means a lifetime, and then you tie in where that lifetime is used inside the structure. Okay, it's attached to the window handle, so it means the surface cannot live longer than this window handle, or the part of the structure that ties into that lifetime. So that's probably the biggest thing I've run into with Rust that C++ doesn't have, and that has a far-reaching implications. Yeah, that's not the best example of lifetimes, but it's the one I had closest at hand because I'm looking through it. I'm not seeing any other big ones. Oh, I guess the other one is that whereas in C there's only one kind of reference, in Rust there are two types. There's the normal reference, and then there's the mutable reference, and that allows you to alias a reference, like copy a reference, and safely by constraining the reference to make it read-only. So without this MUT keyword in front, the reference would be like not allow us to modify the value using that reference. So then you're allowed to copy it. But when it's mutable, then we're allowed to, I said copy, but I meant modify. We're allowed to modify the value if we have a mutable reference, but then the compiler enforces that it can't be copied. That reference can't be aliased or copied. You can only have one within any kind of lifetime. There can only be one outstanding mutable reference. And actually, it's even more strict from that. Once you make a mutable reference, you can't get an immutable. You can't even make an immutable reference, because then you might have one place in your code that can read while another one is writing, and then you have a what's the word? Like a threading a race condition. Concurrency is the word. You have a concurrency issue. Data race, yes. So that's another thing that C++ doesn't yet have, I don't think. Although C++ is getting closer to Rust every year when they're adding stuff to the language. I wouldn't be surprised if like a couple years from now C++ might start having the same things Rust and other languages like this have. The other stuff in the syntax that looks different from C++ is just done differently in C++, right? Some of it's the same, like this is a namespace. Double colon is usually a namespace. Same thing in C++. Yeah. Oh, I was looking at load data file is called from when we are creating the window. We definitely want to watch it, so I'm thinking maybe the watching should be done in load. But I need to balance this correctly, right? Like there needs to be a closed data file. So whatever maybe, if this is setting file, what's file used in? Bitstream, which is stored in file bitstream. So maybe file bitstream is the right thing to track. Right, so there's a handle closed data file. This is where it's not quite balanced because handle open data file doesn't set that. It's inside load data file. And like the opposite of load should be unload, right? So why don't we just balance it right now? There should just be an unload data file. Let's just make it. Load should be balanced with unload. Okay, and we're at least going to move this into there. And probably this other thing too, right? So here we'll do self-unload data file. And we'll move at least these two things into it. Probably more. Okay, and so then load data file should have the watcher code as well. Right now that's in handle open data file. So I should move these two things into load data file. And we'll put them right there. So now load data file, unload data file should be matched. We just need to make sure we call unload data file. And right now, where did I copy that out of? Oh, what was it? Handle close data file. Okay, handle close data file is calling unload. So maybe that's good enough. But where are we calling? Where are we using data from? We're getting it when we create the window. Removing it in handle close. We're adding it in handle open. I mean, I think it's fine. That's balanced, right? If we insert it in handle open, just remove it from handle close. That's balanced. So just give it a try. See if it works. But if it worked, then I should be able to like modify the file that's opened. So we should test it when it's opening the file from knowing what the file should be from its persistent storage, which is how it should. So it opened the last file it opened before. So this should already work. If I like modify the sample file, it should reload. If I remove that favorite emoji and switch back, yeah, it reloaded. So there's only two of them, right? Unknown format document. I messed it up. It lost its mind about the file format. Did it permanently lose it, or did it just lose it? Okay, it temporarily lost its mind about the formats. So I did something wrong there. It knew to reload it. It just it forgot what a document was. Asynchronous processes? Yeah. So similar to Swift, Rust supports asynchronous and has coherent. It has ways through the type system to make sure you do it safely. So in Swift, it's things implement the sendable protocol. In Rust, you have to implement the send and sync traits. And usually that's automatically implemented for you when you make composite structures and every member is sendable, then the whole structure becomes sendable. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, these days Rust and Swift are becoming more and more alike, and I think so. C++ and Rust, they're getting closer as well. I kind of see all these languages as eventually picking up the good parts of each other, and if they can, dropping the old crud. Okay, so I need to figure out how did how does the program how is it forgetting the format? So I guess what I'll do is I'll follow the what would happen in the callback. So where was that again? It was it's a message we get. It? No, it has to do with the watcher. When we set this up, right? Right, we made this guy. Okay, there was an event, some files changed. The way we handle it is we reload the config file. Reload config file, closes it, and then opens it again. So if we close it, we forget about it from the watcher. We drop any parsed information about the data. Okay, that's fine. And then when we load it again, I mean, it should find it again, right? It should start watching it, and it should load the formats again. It should get that selected format. It should actually show it on the screen. And then it goes into maybe parse, right? Okay, it didn't reload the data file. Maybe that's the problem. But it should still have the file bitstream from before, right? So what's going on here? So here's the data. Here's the. Oh, wait a second. What do we do in the info overlay with the config? I don't think we actually do anything. Load config file gives the info overlay something, right? That selected format. Do we do anything with it? We put it in selected format, but what do I never do anything with it. It's there, but we never use it. I think I used to use it, but we're not using it anymore. Okay, then. Unknown format. So what happens if I just manually... Actually, then what happens if I touch the format file? Does it reload then? No, it's like it stopped watching it. What if... I touch the format file? Okay, it's totally broken now. Maybe in the refactoring I did, I broke it. What would cause unknown format? That it couldn't find it in the format. So the formats got toasted, I guess, on this thing. So in maybe parse, I guess. So self parser. Maybe we cleared it in close. Oh, we cleared it, then did we open it? Oh, I see what happened. We closed the config file, we cleared the formats. Close config file. Okay, so yeah, when the sum files changed, let's say the data file changed, we reload the config file, which closes the config file and then loads it. Close the config file, cleared the formats. So one would hope that when we call load config file, it would reload the formats. Let's see what happens. So did we lose the config file? Is that what happened? Yes, we took it out. Okay, that's the problem. We forgot the config file name. That's the problem. So when we set it, if I look at the call hierarchy of load, we might set it. Okay, setting it should be balanced with like actually not closing it, but handling a close where we're force it to close. That's the problem. So setting it stores it. So the opposite of set is we should have an unset to balance this. That's what I should just do. Unset config file, and that's the only place we're allowed to that we should be clearing the config file, right? So this should do self unload config file. We don't have. Yeah. We don't have that yet. It should be doing self config file dot equals none. And we should also be doing this. Okay, we don't have an unload config file. We need to have that to balance load config file. Okay, what does load config file do? It does the watch on the file watcher. So close config file currently does this for right. So this needs to move then. This needs to move to unload config file. Because we need to make it balanced. So everything that load config file does, unload config file should do the opposite. So it does the unwatching. It sets the, so it does these two things. So unload should do the opposite. So selected formats none, and selected formats also none. Okay. Okay, so set config file. So it should be handle close config file should be calling unset config file. So handle open config file closes or closes the config file and then sets it. The set calls open? No, set calls load. Okay, so if set calls load, then unset should call unload, which it does. But then what calls unset should be the opposite of what calls set. Right, so handle close. So this should just be what sets calls insert on that open. That's fine. So handle close should also. So that doesn't go into unset. I think this should just be unset config file then. And unset should call close. If it doesn't already. It calls unload. Okay. And difference between close and okay, close should be first, then unload, right? Close is the reverse of open, and then unload does an additional thing of removing the file name. And yeah, okay, I think this is good then. But there was one other problem in that this watcher, right? I need to references, and then here's where it's set, and all this, and then there's this some files changed. We reload the config file, but we don't reload the data file. I think we need to assume it could be either one, right? So probably reload config file just called once. So we should just rename this reload files. Close config file, that's fine. And then I think it makes sense to close the data file, which we don't have. Load the config file. I guess actually open data file is fine here, right? We also don't have. Why is this load and not open? I don't like how unbalanced I made this. This should be open, not load, right? Oh, because we don't keep it open. So really, there should not be a close config file. It should just be unload. There's an unload. Wait, what's the difference between unload and close? Why do I have both close and unload? Handle close calls unset. Actually, yeah. Okay, my terms are getting confused. Set and unset actually makes more sense to me because unset is more than a close. It's like close and then forget about it. Close and forget about it. Well, why do I have these should be merged, I think. So hold on. So unload config file is only called from unset config file. Who calls close though? So opening new one closes the previous one. It shouldn't. It should call unset. Okay, so that's the thing. This should be unset. It's stronger. It's both close and then forget about what it was, because we're going to set a new one. That makes more sense to me. So close config file is just reload files. Close config, close data, open data. Not balanced. Something's wrong here. So stop watching the config. There is no open config file, so there should be no close. This should all just be put into unload. Yeah, this should just be unload. Then unset should be unload. And then all of this should just go into unload config file. Okay. So tell the parser to forget all formats, stop watching the format files, clear that. The data is a combination of config and data. So, or the data display is a combination of the data file and the config file. So that makes sense to me. This all makes sense to me. In addition, probably just do this all in the same place. Might as well just like forget them all together. Forget all the paths. Clear the parser. Clear all that stuff. Handle all the overlay stuff in the same place. I mean, we can turn off the bitstream region first, then tell it to forget about the data, forget about the format. This looks better to me. But what's the error here? Okay. Did I name them something other than close and open, I guess? Load and unload? Actually, that would make sense, right? It's same thing as config file. So unload data file, load data file. Okay, so there's an unload data file, but no load data. There's a load data file, but it needs to know the path. But load config file doesn't. Why? Oh, I see. I recently added the data file, so to balance this out, this should just get the data file. It should not be passed in. Then whoever calls load data file should be setting it. Hierarchy, create window. Right, so this needs to do two things. First, set it to this. And then tell it to load. Handle open data file. Same thing, right? Well, similar thing. It gets the path. We don't need to get it from and all this junk. We just say path clone, right? Don't need to give it there. All right. Then reload. Doesn't need to do anything. So This is not needed. No, it is. What's the problem here? Okay, so this can own it. What do I do differently and handle open? How come it's okay? Is it because I'm cloning? What's there again? Change this to path. Slice would do. Why didn't it complain about that for here? Because this needed, okay, that needed a path buff. Why though? Wouldn't that have just been path? Yeah. It should always be path. This is too owned. This doesn't need to exist. Cool. I fixed it, right? Sooner said than done. I probably completely screwed this up now. Let's find out. Building. Okay, I think I've successfully put everyone to sleep. Okay, let me test the old behavior. I should be able to go in here and like screw something up and cause an error here, right? It didn't reload, did it? It's just broken. Okay, let me at least see, like, hitting the data file should do something, right? Nope, it's not doing anything. It's not doing anything correctly. I completely messed it up. I don't know what it's doing. If I reload the config. Close the config, open the config. Now it doesn't even know where the last path was. Okay, I've completely killed it. Where was it again? Home. Remove. Projects. Oh. Yeah, it's broke. I've broken it. It loads it the first time, but like handle open doesn't work correctly now. So handle open config file. Calls unset config file, then set. Oh, why do we call it twice? And we took it out. We didn't have to set it to none. Is that the problem that called uns? Oh, that's the problem. Yeah. This sets it to none, so we can't take it out here. We can only borrow it. We're allowed to drain the format files path because that should balance with load. Right? Yes. So it gets inserted and watched in load. So it makes sense that in unload we would drain it on unwatch. Okay, but we don't take it out of config file because load didn't put it in there. It also just referenced. So actually, do I need as ref? can I just do the same thing? Get a path buff versus what? Same thing. Easier to read like that. Okay, so unload no longer takes the config file, and I should make sure it's consistent with unload data file. Doesn't, oh, that also takes it. We don't want that. Is that the problem, that the data file also gets put in? It gets put in before load data file. Load data file doesn't say it, so unload data file shouldn't take it out. What should take it out? Handle close data file should take it out. Handle close data file. It doesn't. Okay, that's the problem. So just like, I guess there could be an unset data file, but I think it's collapsed in here. There's no unset data file because it's kind of all together. Why did I have the difference? There doesn't really need to be a difference, does there? It should be the same. Hold on, let me think about this. Well, for now, let me just fix it by, this is where we would say data file equals. Unload data file should not take it. Should borrow it. Okay, so unload data file clears the file bit stream. Load data file should be just setting it for balance. Yes, that's it right there. Okay. I just got myself into a mess by not having balanced methods, I think. And by confusing terms set, load, and open. And unset, unload, and close. Using them too interchangeably. Got all those times when a minor change results in, well, I'm making a minor change and I'm noticing inconsistencies, and I'm like, I need to clean this up while I'm at it. How do you handle situations where can iterator holds onto a mutable reference, but in the body of the loop you need the same mutable reference? If can you directly Hey there, Cthulhu. It has been a long time. I run into those Sir Elfman. I've run into that before a few times, and to me, it's always a sign that I was thinking about it in a way that wasn't safe to begin with, or I'm being too mutable, if that makes any sense. Like, the moment you get a mutable reference and you give it to someone, you're sort of saying, like, you're the only one allowed to look at this right now. But then if you also need it somewhere else in the body of the loop, then you can't have two things have mutable reference at the same time. So you either have to not give out the mutable reference to the iterator, or you have to have some way for the mutable iterator to give it back to you. So one way to do that is if the iterator can, like something that the iterator does, can like call back and let like lend you the same mutable reference temporarily in a callback. And then moving to a vector. Yeah, so that's always an escape hatch you can use, and I definitely don't want to discourage that. If you can't think through a way to do it without trying to alias your mutable reference, just make a copy and move on, right? The only real downsides of making a copy are there's two things. You're less performant, and also there's a possibility that your two copies become unsynchronized. So you have to think about that too. Once you make a copy of it, now you have a copy of the data, and if the original gets modified, your copy might not reflect that modification, and they're unsynchronized, right? Yeah, using someone's library kind of sucks. If they didn't give you a way to pass through the mutable reference to something else. So for A in some generator, which takes an F, do another F. So Let me take your example and see, and like tell you if like maybe there's a way to do that. Uh-oh. I got to reboot the virtual machine because I have an unclickable field here. Hold on. Quick reboot. First, I'm going to send this out of the virtual machine to reboot. I think the my VM gets screwed up in some way because of pop-up windows are lingering. Like their ghost is lingering, and the window manager thinks that there's a pop-up window when there isn't. And so when I mouse over it, some part of the windowing system thinks there's a pop-up, but then it actually doesn't actually display anything. And that pop-up window ghost never goes away. But as you can see, I can fairly quickly recover from it. No big deal. Okay, so you had that example, right? So here's how I might try to do it. So this is this ate your mutable reference, right? And gave you back a sequence. So this is implying that you have some generator that gives you some impl of iterator of what does it iterate? What's your item in this case? You get something, right? You didn't get the F back out. So what's the type of A? I guess that would be, it was some item A, right? Elements in an array. So what would be really cool is if they gave you an A and a mutable F back out. I don't think they can do that though, because there's nothing that says that the receiver of this iterator can't hold on to the items. So probably not something you can do, right? Okay, why? My first question of that library is why did they require a mutable reference? Is their generator modifying your F? Because if it is modifying your F, then it's unsafe for you to do something to it, because it might be doing something with that mutable reference in a different context, like in a future or something, or another thread. It might have sent it somewhere. Wasm time. Oh, ChatGPT doesn't always get enough samples of code to deduce that what it's generating for you is actually consistent with what you can do with the language. Like it's probably getting that from someone's post out of context. Passing down a module that has the entire virtual machine state. So one way, if you could rewrite this, would be instead of a mutable reference to an F, it would be well, the way it's defined is probably function, right? And it's F, which is a mutable F, right? So one way to write it instead would be to have it be a RC ref cell F, and you would give it f.clone, and then here you would do f.borrow mute, and then turn it into a mutable reference like that. And then that just kind of passes to the runtime, that when you're calling your method, by the time you call your method, they've released the whatever they needed to get it. So you're using interior immutability. Incrementing the ref count of each array element. Well, then if they have a ref count, they really should be using RC already. They shouldn't be putting it into something and then requiring mutable access. I would, if you had control over both the client and the library, and you needed something where you need to have two disparate part sections of the code possibly mutate, I would go towards this if it's single threaded, and the multi-threaded version of this is arc mutex. And then instead of borrow, it's lock. Right? So maybe the generator, when it's generating the items, it might have to briefly lock the f mutex in order to like to do something. But when it returns the item, it should have unlocked it so that you can lock it. So that's a runtime check and not a compile time check. And this is the multi-threaded, fully sendable version. And then if you know it's a single thread, it's RC refcell. It's basically the same thing. RC makes it shareable, and refcell makes it interior mutable. So you can make aliases of the refcell through the RC, and the invariant that two things can't be both writing, or while you're writing from one, you can't read it from the other. That's all checked at runtime instead of compile time. That's what I would try to do. But if you're stuck with a mutable reference, there's really not much you can do other than, like you said, making a copy. Unless you find someone who knows Rust better than me who can give you better advice. Where was I here? I was working on... Oh, I think I was ready to test this, right? And I just needed to reboot it. I don't know what I was doing before the side discussion, which I love the side discussion because it challenges me. And I'm sorry I don't have a better answer other than try to do interior mutability or copy. But yeah. I think I was going for, can I change the format like this, and will it try to reload? Okay, good. It reloaded and found the mistake, and if I undo the mistake, it should come back. Great. Okay. So now the real trick is, can I do the same thing with the data file? Can I remove the bicycle, and will it reparse it here? Yes. Okay, I think I fixed it. Why does collect need type annotations? Why can't it sort of infer the type you want? It can sometimes. So general rule of type elision is that usually you're taking data from some place, some source, and sending it to some destination. The compiler's got to get the type from either the source or the destination. If it's in some kind of context where it's unclear, the source and the destination are both unclear, it's going to be like, I don't know what you mean. You need to tell me. The interesting thing is sometimes you don't have to tell it the complete type. Sometimes you can just tell it part of the type, and you can use underscore for the rest. So I can show you where I use collect. Look at this. I didn't have to tell it that type. I just needed to tell it it's a hash set of something, and it figured out the rest of it. It figured out that from... Okay, that's not a great example. How about this one where it's vector? Yeah, see this children thing? It's temporary, right? I only want a copy just so I can sort it and then iterate it, right? Well, there's lots of types that you could potentially collect into, sort, and then iterate, right? So I have to at least pin it down on vector, but I don't need to tell it what's in the vector because it figures that out from the iterator, that it's a tuple with a string and something else in it, right? So you can get away with like a minimum amount of pinning down the type and use underscore for the rest of it. But yeah, usually the compiler is pretty good. If I get rid of that, it'll usually say why it can't figure it out. And it's usually because it's like, okay, so it's not the best, but it does say consider giving it vector underscore. See that? So it's like, I really only need to know that it's the outer part of the type. I know what the inner part of the type is. And you know, like it said, you can actually do it the other way. you could pin it down this way. Slightly fewer characters, but you have to be okay with putting the type up front near the end, and that's a personal preference. Yeah, see how in my case, like, this would work with vecdq too. I just need to qualify it, maybe. Except for that, you have to pretend for a moment that vecdq also has a sort unstable by. If it did, it would actually work here, right? But it could be any kind of type, and the compiler is like, I could test all possible types, but it would take so long that you'd complain about how slow the compiler is. So it's too ambiguous for me. I'm just gonna say, hey, please pin it down to something. Hey there, Nightshade dude. You want to see using the C API, it doesn't have the same features as the REST API. Well, when you go to the C API, you have to be explicit about every type. So wouldn't you have the same problem about why can't it infer the type? C can't infer the type anyway, unless your C API is completely type erased. So that is one thing different about Rust. Rust is very strict about the types most of the time. Everything is strongly typed, way more than in C. Whereas in C, you might have a void pointer, and it's like, I don't care what the type is. Do you have any other examples that are easier to understand? They're all like very similar to each other. I guess here's a similar thing, like equality testing with the assert equal macro needs some single type, like a single value in memory. It can't work with we can't work with iterators. So I need to collect the output and the expected output into something, and I could in both of these places just use vecdq and it would still work. See, that works too. So Rust doesn't want to assume that vec will be what you want. It's like, well, if you might want something else, I'd recommend vec, but you don't have to use that, so please say what you want. Software updater. Telling me visual code needs to be updated. How about remind me later? Do that after stream or something. ID type erase it all, alias pointers like crazy. Yeah, so there's trade-offs, right? You have less help from the compiler, less help from static analysis tools, but more flexibility when you erase types. When you don't erase types, it's harder. You're less flexible, but you get more help from the static analysis. I wouldn't just drink the Kool-Aid. I'd try to understand both sides of the spectrum, so to speak. So there are ways in Rust to erase the type and to have it more flexible, just like void pointers. And you can also alias things with like refcell. That's a lot more flexible. You lose the static analysis, but you gain more flexibility. But the other side of the coin is now there's more runtime checking. And you can even like completely open the box with the unsafe in Rust. You know, the dreaded unsafe. And then you can do a lot of stuff that you normally do in C, and you're basically opting out of all of the help that the compiler and the runtime would otherwise give you to make sure your code is safe. But it gives you super flexibility. You can do all the aliasing and type erasure and type reinterpret, just like you reinterpret cast to C++. You can do that to your heart's content. It's just the trade-off is now you're not going to get help from the tools to prevent you from doing bad things, right? So learn how to do that stuff, because sometimes like it's worth it. When you're working on a very focused component, and you can guarantee all the invariants, and it's like, compiler, it's not a big deal. I got this. Feel free to use unsafe. But also learn the other side of the spectrum, where you try to make it totally safe. Types everywhere. Let the compiler figure out everything, and let it force your hand when you do make a mistake. That has a use. The bigger and more complex of a system you have, I think, the more you want the tools to help you. Working on something very focused, very low level, though, the more you kind of want the tools to get out of your way and let you optimize it. I guess that's another thing. If you're optimizing the code, sometimes you just want to take over and tell the compiler, this is exactly how I want you to compile this code. Don't try to infer anything or check anything. Don't insert any instrumentation. Just do exactly this. The ultimate of that would be inline assembly. Just don't even compile the code from a language at all. You just do it all yourself. All right, I'm totally off on a tangent. I wanted to test this a little bit more to make sure I didn't screw things up, and then I'll mark this done. Wow, I've been going for 2.5 hours. I kind of need to wrap this up in the next half hour. Well, it's compiling. Let me see. Okay, but never mind. So it tested reload based off of format change, reload based off of data change, right? I didn't test like closing the data. Okay, opening the data again. Okay, how about opening a different data? All right, I know why that doesn't parse. It's a different problem. Opening the same data again. Okay, we didn't do the clear thing. Maybe I'd do that next. So same thing with close config. You leave the data open. Open config should, oh, okay, that's a problem. It didn't remember the last path like it did for data file. So home, right? Yeah, home, projects, example, no, examples, toml, right? Okay, open config again, it does remember. So the problem right now is when I close config and I open config, it forgets what path to try, right? Projects. Yeah, it's so annoying to me to have to navigate through. I kind of want to fix that. But there's no, if I close data and open data, it does remember what the examples file, right? And that's not just same as the config file, right? So if I go to the stage file, close it and open, yeah, it remembers the path. So it remembers the path for data, but not config. Otherwise, it's working, right? If I select the data thing and I close config, it unselects that. That's exactly what I want. Now it's going to forget the path, but that aside for a moment. Okay, so the only problem is forgetting the path. Okay, so how does it remember the data path? If I do like handle open data file, before that, this open data file message, okay, so there was a file dialog at some point that okay, here it is. So there was a last data file path and a last config file. So this got cleared somehow, right? See how the data file path is. So starts out at none. It gets set on set last data file path. So how is last config file path set? set last config file path. Okay, so what's the call hierarchy? So set last config file path, unset config file actually sets that to none. Okay, that's the problem, right? And actually, you can actually see the difference. This we should not do. That's the problem. The other balance problem here is we should probably have unwatched the config file path. Yeah. Let's balance this correctly. So this should really go under similar place, right? Here. Now we don't have an oh wait, no, I'm confusing unload with unset. Never mind. Unload config file does unwatching. Unload data file does unwatching. The problem is that we don't have an unset data file. I have a set data file. Okay, well anyway, that it shouldn't forget the path anymore. And it's relatively cleaned up from what I had before. I tend to add more work when I'm fixing one thing and I'm like, oh, that's broken. Let's fix that too. Close config, open config, should remember the path. Nice. Cool. All right, anything else I want to change around here? Oh, while we're at it, can we just do a clear log? I think we should just clear the log automatic. We should just call clear log on the info overlay. I'm trying to think, should I have a clear log method in the app? Call it from two places, or do I just call info overlay clear log from both places? Thinking since the info overlay clearly has the responsibility of clearing it, we just call info overlay clear log from both places. So yeah, the other place we wanted to call it was when right when we parse, right? So in maybe parse, we would just clear the if we're doing something, we're clearing the log first. So when I run this, every time we reload, it's going to, oh, actually, it's going to clear the log after logging the stuff from the introduction, right? Yeah, so we lost some of the initial log. So this maybe parse is also called from create window, and we've already might have logged some stuff before that. So open config file, open data file, reload files. They both call load data file. This one does not. We just want to call it from all three places then? I can't think of anything better. So we don't want to call it from the create window path, but we do want to call it from the other three paths. So I'm just going to do it from all three places, and we're going to do it as the first thing so that these, like this, doesn't get cleared, etc. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. All right, so we keep our log messages. Now if I don't know, mess up the file, having an extra comma there. It cleared the log before it reported all the errors. Fix that. Should clear the log. Nice. Same thing with config file. Well, that's reload files. So the other two paths are open data, open config, right? So I just open a data file. You get a bunch of errors. I open another data file. Errors go away. Open config, I don't know, GIF? Errors. Open config JSON, errors go away. Nice, done. Parsing JSON into? I'm glad you asked. So we're parsing it into a data structure that we can walk through. So this program, you can teach it to parse anything using a language that I came up with to describe how a file is structured. And so, for example, JSON format, a document is a value, and a value is either an object, string, list, number, and to know what it is, we look ahead one character to see what the first character is, right? And like an object is a brace, a open and close, and then we have a loop with one or more values, or name values, right? Name value pairs. Name value pair is a name colon value. There's other aspects of the language, like if there's a minus sign in front, then it means we don't care to show that in the output. So for name value, it'll only show the name and the value. My program will compile that into a recipe in memory, an abstract syntax tree, that it will walk through along with the data to kind of match up what the bit stream from the original file, how it matches the elements parsed in order. So if the beginning of the recipe was that it's a value, then a value has an object in it, and an object has an opening brace and some elements and a close brace. It's constructing a data tree out of the input, and the data tree reflects the structure of the original file. So and this is completely under the control of how you describe the format. So if I describe the format in a different way that wasn't like this, but maybe I only cared about looking at strings, like I just ignore everything except for the strings, then this would just be a list of the strings that it found, right? But I chose to make the output structure kind of like the same hierarchy as the original JSON, and so that's what we kind of get, right? So here's the list of things inside of the favorite emojis, and we have 2 of them, and these are the 2 emojis, right? So JSON is just an example. I do support inline comments, and I think I have some in here. Yeah, like here. It's not broken there anymore because we fixed it. So yeah, it's supported by 2 forward slashes at the end of the line. I don't have this style of comment. That it doesn't support. So if I do that, it's gonna break and say all unexpected, because it saw this as a divide by and then multiply by. I figured, you know, I'm happy enough with comments at the end of the line. I don't have inline comments, but I could add it. You wouldn't have support that in your opinion? Simpler is better? Yeah. So this was JSON. I also have a format for GIF. So it looks like this. So I have hold on. We'll get it quick. Stage, right? Yep. So this is an animated GIF that you might recognize. So if we were to parse that, open that file up, and I've already lost mouse control. Open data file up to stage. Something to do with the pop-up windows, I think. I'm losing the ability to click. You see the cursor change, so I can't click on to do anymore. Anyway, pog slide, right? it tries to parse pog slide as a GIF and says, I don't see, I can't parse that as a value. It's got like some weird byte in there, right? It doesn't match anything from a JSON. But if you open now the GIF thing, now I have it to where like, oh, it recognizes that there's a header. The header has a signature. It's got a version number in it, right? And that's all because if you load the GIF configuration, it has different instructions on how to parse the input. And we got all the way down to actually parsing these graphic control blocks, so the 10 frames. If I click any one of them, there's a table-based image in there. And here's the actual where it is in the file, and here's the input bit stream that we decoded, and there are 5995 input tokens. You can loop through them if you want, or I can hover over the output here, and that's as far as I've gotten. I've gotten the table of lookup indices into the palette. So the last step would be to take these and actually plot them on the screen, and you'd have a picture of Pepe. So that's on my to-do list to do soon. I need to actually make a visual element that we can show and plot the pixel colors. Same VM still, yeah, except for a year and a half ago, I didn't have these problems where I have dead zones from the mouse. See, if I click and drag, it works. But if I like click over here now, I can't. Nothing's clickable. Can't click there. I can click on that. Click on these two, but I can't click here anymore. It's like there's a phantom window on the top left. And the only way I know how to do that is to reboot. But first, back up my files, then reboot. I am using eGUI. And the backend I'm using WGPU right now. But I could use a different backend. Like one suggestion was to port this to the web, and there I would have eGUI. Then maybe the backend would be something in WASM. The password couldn't possibly be Raimu, could it? Except for I keep mistyping. Fortunately, rebooting is fast. My talking is slower than my rebooting, so. Oh, I can click stuff again. So yeah, one thing I really like about my parser is that once it parses, it now has a record of all the data elements and where they came from the original file. So if I click on anything here, like, I don't know, like the width of the image number of image at from this data element 6, right? It shows me exactly where that is in the file. Also, if I click a byte in the file, it shows me what element that is. So if I just scroll to a random spot and click, it says, oh, that's the inside the 13th sub block of the image data for data 2. Will the window to a different virtual desktop? Does it have the same unclickable area? I'll have to try that if it when it happens again. Yeah. Both of these things, actually all three of these sub windows are custom drawn using eGUI's graphics stuff. The hardest part was getting the curved parts of here because you can't make a filled shape with curves like that and have it fill correctly. So I had to actually hand code all of the geometry for the curves. It was a pain in the butt. What else can I talk about? That's basically it. Working on this, there's really no end goal. It's just for fun. The whole reason I've been doing this for so long, for like 60 streams now, is because I guess I'm really into data parsing, and I could reuse this later for protocols, for other kinds of data, and reverse engineering data formats. I have a friend who was working on what was it, Digimon, trying to reverse engineer Digimon files. And I'm like, hey, the parser I'm writing, this will make your job a lot easier because you could just like basically the reverse engineering would be um, going in and starting off a format and just making guesses about what comes next and seeing what happens when you actually try to have it use that recipe, and then you get further and further into the file. Like if you were trying to guess what this header is, you'd be like, oh, I think GIF stands for it's like a identifier. Maybe the 89A is a version number, right? Or maybe you get it wrong. And then if you knew, for example, that it's the GIF was 112 by 112, you would say, oh, you know, these two words are 112, so maybe that's the width and the height, right? So it could be useful for reverse engineering data formats. But yeah, let me synchronize my to-do list. So we did this, right? Auto clear the log for every parse. Okay, the idea for this one was that if it reloads and it collapses the tree again, we could auto expand it based off of the last byte we had selected. I think I have enough time to do that tonight, but that sounds like something we could do next stream, maybe. Okay, we did this one. This is a really big one. Can't do that now. This I have to look into. Can't do that now. That's sort of esoteric. I don't want to do that now. Don't want to do that now. That sounds scary. Could maybe do some of this stuff. Oh, I fixed this one. That was at the beginning of the stream. I could do a little bit more MVE stuff. No, I really want to end soon though. What's the one thing I could finish up with? Too much. This is too much. This would be cool to work on soon. Too much work right now though. This is, yeah, these are all the asynchronous to-do list items. Can't do now. Too esoteric. This one's a little too esoteric. Too much work. Yeah. I think I'm out of easy stuff to do tonight. So send that out of the virtual machine. Oh, this would be nice to do tonight. It wouldn't be too much time because someone gave me another sample JSON file that has a little bit more interesting stuff in it. So it's got more multi-character text in there. It also has, what was tripping up is these built-in escape characters. If I could just get it to understand escape characters, the basic ones, then I can make this work. So let's do that, and then I'll end the stream. So back onto JSON toml, and then load a JSON file from examples. So this one parses right now, right? Got 9 pieces of the JSON file. But if we load sample 2, it gets stuck on element 2. So it gets element 1, it gets stuck on element 2, and it gets stuck on the value. There's a list, and it gets one value, and inside that one value, okay, this is going to get deep, isn't it? Inside that one element, there's another element, which string, which list, this list. Yeah, this is going to be complicated. Object in there. Yeah, that's another thing about this sample is it's really deep. Whoops, wrong window. Log hide. The error is really deeply buried in here. There's an object in there. It's right there. And my face is probably blocking this, but it says that the string is star backslash backslash. It basically gets stuck right at this character. I can click on that one character. It's stuck on this character, doesn't know what to do with that. It says it's an end quote. So it thinks the end of the string is there, and then it doesn't know what that would. It thinks that that's the close brace, and it's like, that's not a close brace. So it said it doesn't know that this is an escape for that, and that's not actually the end of the string. Digimon reverse engineering is Raimi's hobby. Do you know Raimi, Nightshade Dude? So from Atom Stream, Raimi is another mod on Atom Stream, and he was actually streamed this once or twice, where he's reverse engineering Digimon files. What's these for VM? It protects all my private data, so I can't accidentally show you any private data because there's no private data on the VM. Okay, so if you don't know Raimi and you're not on Atom Stream, there's no context about it. Yeah, if there's something wrong that goes on with the VM, I just reboot it and it's pretty quick. That's really the only reason. Not accidentally showing the wrong window to you. Okay, so if I were to teach it about escape sequence, it would just work. So let me see if I can do that. So it's in string. The problem here is that not quote. Where's not quote? Not quote is very naive. It just says the next character can't be a quote. And it's inside of an alternate sequence so that if it fails, it'll just break out. The intention for that is if it's not a quote, it's got to be quote, and that's the end quote, right? I think what I want to do is I want to replace that not quote with like string element. Okay, we only use it in one place, so we just name it correctly, right? String element. And then string element is a little bit more than just can't be a quote. I think let's do a look ahead. Actually, let's just copy this line, look ahead one. And we have to name it something else, so like next. If next be easy to express as strings, I think I want to do something like I did somewhere else, right? Yeah, something like this. Oh, but then we're reusing C. What if we just call it, we call this one element. We're just gonna rewrite this one anyway, right? So we'll comment it out. Okay, so if next is backslash, then we're going to what? Just ignore the character for now. So ignore df8 escape. Or maybe we keep escape in there. 8 char element. Actually, then it's becomes simple because then I just do this. So if the next character is backslash, then we parse it again as the escape character. Then we get the actual character and we return it. Actually, no, then oh, it's a little bit, that's right, I have to have this in here. I do have to have an else. Or do I? I can do it this way, else if next equals double quote, then put the error, right? Yeah, because error on a look ahead will do the same thing as an error not look ahead when it's in an alt. So that does what I want. That worked. Don't think it did. Bad string on line 116. Oh, I don't have that supported yet. I can do that really quick though. I did this earlier for double quote, and I guess we need to do it for backslash. So, where is that? It's in the Lexer. Close everything. Open the Lexer's output. Or lib. Yeah. So I had a test case for string, right? And the test case had or the test string has a test case for double quote. I think we just need one for backslash right here. So this double quote case, I'm just going to copy paste and make a copy where it's a double backslash to become a backslash. Save that, and when I run this, it should fail, saying it's a bad string. Well, make it a good string by adding support in the string callback for that particular escape sequence. Or backslash. I just need to know what the ASCII code for backslash is, because I'm lazy. Backslash, where are you? 5C. Now we go here, we run the test again. It should pass this time. Cool. And just to be sure, mess anything up, I'll run all my unit tests. Hey there, Endurn. Good morning. You have arrived at the end of my stream. I know my times are not EU friendly, but I do have a VOD. You can just pretend that it's live. So, Endurn, when you pretend that it's live later and you're watching the VOD, when you get to the place where the guy's supposed to be banned, wait about 5 seconds and then pretend that you're hitting the ban button, and then you'll get the sense that, yes, I helped moderate the stream and I banned them. Yeah, I know, it's morning for you. That's why when I can on the weekends, I'm trying to stream then too, so I'm more EU friendly some of the time. Can't normally stream in the morning for me, evening for you because of work. All right, running this again. Ban someone in a VOD. I'm waiting patiently for the compiler pile. GUI's always the hardest because it's got to link everything together. Okay, there we go. Oh, hey, it's parsing now. So if I click on one of these weird characters in here, wow, that was so deep. So, whoop, wrong window. Log, hide. So that so deep we can't even see where I clicked. Where's that? Down there. So it's the 183rd character in the string there. Okay, so it doesn't escape those characters, I guess, because they're not emojis. So when I had an emoji, it was totally escaping it with this \u, but these it's not. I wonder where the decision is made whether to represent it as a Unicode escape versus use it on the font. The finished JSON file. I got this from someone a couple days ago. Is this one from XKCD? No, you're just saying that #1 programmer excuse for legitimately slacking off. Ah, I see. Endorn is exercising the bot. Thank you very much. I also have it's fine. Oh, is it what is it? Fine? Oh, what is it? This is fine? Okay, now I gotta look it up. DB browser. Okay, you got it compiling, but wait, why are you deleting it now? You can add it. Just trying to find out where. Browse data. Commands. Wait, this is fine should have worked. Why did this is fine not work for me? Hold on. Maybe my bot has a bug. Oh, you didn't have an exclamation mark in the front. Requires more access. Need 99 has 3. What? I hid the 90. I hid a bunch of commands. Why did I do that? I hid that command and I also hid the leaderboard and the advent of code. Why did I do that? Yeah, you only have access level 2. Okay, let me fix that. I don't know why it's level 99. It should just be 2. Apply. Right changes. There. Now it'll work. I don't know why I hid that command behind access level 99 required. All right, anyway. So, forget who gave me this JSON file, but it can actually get through the whole thing now. This. Very, very deeply buried note. I wonder what that looks like in VS Code. Oh, that's Japanese. Interesting. So you can see here this value that I have selected. Oh, that's a bug. Look at that. It doesn't want to hide. Oh, can you even see that? Okay, you can sort of see it around my head. It the highlighting doesn't extend. It insists on starting to highlight where that column would have started, where that row would have started from the first column. But if the second column starts before the end of the first column would have started, the highlight row is not correct. Anyway, I don't have Japanese in my font, I guess. The UI bug, I gotta put it on my to-do list. Gotta fix that. Can't just let that go. So this is data tree. If row is selected, but the second column starts to the left of where the text in the first column would have started, the highlight starts at where the first column would have started. If a row is selected but the second column starts to the left, need to reword this. Highlight starts at, I'll just say the starts at the ladder position, not the former. If a row is selected but the second column starts to the left of where the text in the first column would have started, the highlight starts at the ladder position, not the former. As expected. Well, not as expected. I think that's plain. Okay, so I did fix escape sequences. Well, this is partially fixed. Maybe I just modify this, or I mark this as done, and then I add what we haven't done yet. So that's Unicode escape sequences, right? So in strings, it's actually very lenient. It's whatever character follows the backslash, it just it considers as. Actually, no, that's not even correct. So these two are going to be correct, right? Why is / escaped? Anyway, backspace form feed, new line, required return tab, they're not correct. So correct ape sequences for N, R, etc. And then support ape sequences for Unicode. Right. You never saw the this is fine? I think this is one of the original. One of the original ones, and like whenever it's like reused as a meme, they only take the top frame. Or maybe it's the other way around. Someone took the original meme and extended it into 2 more frames. Okay, I think I'm done for the night. I've updated the to-dos. I have some stuff I can do next stream. Probably, let's see, what am I going to do next stream? Probably not that one. That's an esoteric GUI bug. I might do this one, because that's going to be annoying until I fix it. And I kind of want to work on something that's visually cool. So I think the next one would be the one up here to add an image type and visualizer for color images. Because if I added that, my GIF stuff would be complete pretty much. Maybe the only thing beyond this would be to actually interpret the delay times between animation frames and get to where it really is repeating what a GIF player would do. So like the ultimate would be to recreate the POG slide. Like I had a window that was showing that, you know, generated by my own parser code. That would be cool. But I think I'm okay stopping on individual, like if you click on an individual animation frame and it just shows you the pixels. And if we could click on a pixel and it would show us what the input token was for that, that would be awesome too. All right, so probably work on that next time. That the image viewer and then this specific to-do item here that we re-expand when we reload so that we don't lose our place. You seen reverse of these is fine? No. I don't know if I understand that correctly, but that's the reverse. So does that mean if the original was funny, then the reverse would be not funny? Oh, what's this? I can actually knock on other streams and ask to collaborate with them? That's new. Huh. Okay, so there's one person that I haven't rated in a while, but he's on break or something right now. Is he going to be back in a while? He says he'll be right back. I don't know if he's coming back, though. Or when. Jitspo's going. I guess I could ask when he's coming back. Maybe his chat will say. Oh, the knocking on other streams to collaborate? Okay, I don't want to raid someone who's like away. I'd like to raid Adam C. Eunice, but I can't because he's away. So instead I think we're just going to, oh, I closed it. Can I like just I need a button where I go to the guy's stream and just like rate him. But I don't see such a button, so I guess I gotta manually type it. Hey there. Hello, goodbye, TS Just. We're gonna raid Chitspo. My 10 seconds of stream were pog? Great. Okay, I can hit the raid now button at any point now. I'll probably be back on Wednesday. So roughly 44 hours from now. So I hope you guys have a great time at Chitspo's stream, and I'll see you next time, okay? Bye-bye.